and welcome to Storytime with Georgia and Amber. I'm Amber, and today I'm going to be reading I Am Gandhi. Let's get on with the book. I am Gandhi. Today people call me strong, unafraid, unstoppable. I wasn't always that way. As a child growing up in India, I was shy, afraid of the dark. I was also afraid of snakes. Can you tell I was small and spent most of my time with books? I wasn't good at sports like soccer. In fact, I'd run home after school afraid that people would make fun of me, but I liked taking nice long walks. Even with all my books, I wasn't a great student. I was bad on multiplication. And one day, when I got one of spelling words wrong, the teacher pointed to another boy's paper. I didn't think that was the right thing to do. That's not how you learn. When the teacher scolded me, I was bothered in my life. I didn't want to copy others' work. However, there was a story that was worth copying. It was a play I read in school about a man named Shrivan Kumar. Shrivan was so devoted to his parents that when they were too old to travel, he literally carried them on his back. It was an example I wanted to follow, one person carrying another one who needed help. My father had a good job. He was a political leader, but there was many who had no jobs. They were the poorest of the poor. They were treated terribly and had the worst jobs. There are different laws that apply to them. Back in then, the British were so powerful they ruled India. To get a good job like my father, it eventually moved to London, England, and I became a lawyer. I even dressed up really fancy, trying to look rich and even more British. But when I moved back in India, I had my first case in court. There was a moment I trained for. All I had to do was question the witness. The moment I stood up, my heart sang in my boots. It was like the room was spinning. I sat back down without a word. That was my first case. I completely failed. Luckily, I got offered a new case in the country called South Africa. I was excited to try. As I took the last on my journey by train, a white passenger noticed me. He didn't like me because I was Indian. My skin was brown and his was white. Believe it or not, he had a law on his side. The train asked me to leave. He said if I didn't leave, he'd call the police. Yes, you may, I told him. I refused to get out voluntarily. The police pushed me out of the train and tossed my stuff onto the station platform. It was cold in that station and dark. I could have gone back on the train and sat in third class. Instead, I stayed there all night shivering. I also meditated, which is when you close your eyes and focus to your mind. To finish the trick, I took horse, draw, carriage once again because of my skin color. They didn't let me sit in with the white passengers. The driver hit my ear and tried to drag me down. I never hit him back, but I refused to let go. Eventually, he gave up. But this is how Indians were treated back then. To change it, I knew I had to take action. I had to fight, even meant suffering hardship. Within a week, I held meetings for my fellow Indians in South Africa. It was my first public speech of my life. I focused on the truth. After the speech, we had all a discussion. There are times to talk, but there are also real power in listening. Soon after, I decided to stay in South Africa and form the Natal Indian Congress to help the Englands. They will become more active in the government. But the most important thing I did was come up with Satyagraha. In Satari, it combines the word sati, which means truth, with agara, which means firmness or force. I knew Satyagraha was my truth force. Satyagraha was how we fight against the unfair treatment of Indians. Was I perfect? No. Sometimes I lost my temper. But that's when I figured out the best way to fight, by transforming myself and being the best person I could be. In no time at all, I tested out Satyagraha. The next law was passed that would keep the Indians out of South Africa unless they resisted with the government. Police could stop us on the street and search our homes anytime they wanted. For breaking that law, they put me in prison for 2 months. They put me there again for breaking another law. One that said Indians couldn't travel in certain areas. You know what's even stronger than that? People working together. Soon, we started more settlements and farms. Those who practiced Satyagraha could live in a simple life in peace. As our peace army grew, so did strength. When the South Africa government made Indians pay more taxes than white residents and refused to improve the safety of coal miners, we decided to protest by striking. It was just like Thor's taught. Instead of using violence to protect the unfair rules, Indian people used peaceful method. No one went to work at the coal mines. Without workers, the coal company will go out of business. Now the only contest, the question was, would it succeed? It took years, but the South Africa government passed the Indian Welfare Act of 1914, improved their lives of so many Indians. After 21 years, it was time to take what I had learned in South Africa back to my home in India. I was still being run by the British, who treated us terribly. And worst of all, Indians were still treated some other Indians terribly too. To protest the unfair British laws in India, we held another strike for one full day. No one went to work. All of India, every shop, farm, restaurant closed down. The soldiers attacked the crowd. Over thousands were injured, hundreds were killed. They hit us hard. It was tempting to hit them back. But violence will never get you what you want. As the head of our own organization, the Indian National Congress, I called for massive boycotts, which means we would stop going to British schools and stop working for British employers. I had to make sure that as many people as possible heard my message. To do that, I relied on the same thing when I was younger. I walked. The only standing together, rich and poor, will be free from this unfair government. Only united are we unstoppable. That didn't mean everyone was on my side. Even though my work against the government was peaceful, the British again put me in prison, this time for 6 years. I smiled as they took me in jail. But within 2 years, I got sick there. The government people knew I would be enraged if something happened to me, so they let me out. I went back to my mission. The British government still wouldn't leave India. They passed new laws called Salt Acts, which said Indians couldn't make or sell our own salt. We had to buy it from the British. How could we convinced the British? We marched on March 12, 1930. 78 people joined me as we headed toward the sea. I was 60 years old, walking 240 miles, 10 miles each day for nearly a month. The farther we walked, the more people joined us. They poured water on our path to keep the dust down. They tossed flowers and leaves to make it easier to walk on. The crowd soon ballooned up to thousands, stretched back for 2 miles. We poured around the world toward our story. 24 days later, we reached our destination, the village of Dani, near the Arabian Sea. That's where I gave the signal to the nation. What's he doing? As I picked up a handful of salt left by the waves, that's it. I never raised my fist. I never carried a weapon, but that act, holding salt, as I wasn't brought from the British government, I fought back. I broke the law with the entire world watching. Soon after, I was arrested again, but over the next few days, thousands of Indians broke the same law. A few clumps of salt united our people and made the whole world realize how poorly the British were treating us. From there, it still took years, but we were on our way to India, becoming a free country. My struggles were done. But remember the untouchables, the poorest of poor? They were still suffering. I was in jail. I couldn't act. They could lock me up. They could put me in the dark, but it could never defeat me. In my life, I was the small one, the skinny one, the poor one, even the shy one, but I was never the weak one. Over many years, I had many fights, but to fight by purposely avoiding violence, I refused to raise your fist no matter what raised against you. Some would call that foolish madness, but what really is courage. Strength doesn't come from the seeds of your body, it comes from the seeds of your heart. Show love, especially when you want to fight unfairness. You must help others who are in need. Carry them on your shoulders. Speak up for them when they don't have a voice. Hold true in your beliefs. I am Gandhi, and in a gentle way, I will still shake the world. And that is the end of the book. See you next time with Storytime with George and Amber. Bye!